This is the story of Blessed Pier Giorgio Frassati, a young man whom Pope John Paul II called a model of virtue and a man of the Beatitudes. Pier Giorgio Michelangelo Frassati was born in Turin, Italy on April 6, 1901. Fearing he might not live long, since his breathing pattern seemed to be extremely irregular, he was baptized the same day. However, within a few days he was stronger than ever. Pier was born into an affluent and influential family. His father was the founder and director of the prominent newspaper La Stampa. Being extremely involved in Italian politics, he later became a senator and even ambassador to Germany. His mother was a painter whose temperament was extremely negative and high-strung. Unfortunately, the family and spiritual lifestyle that Pier grew up in was anything but ideal. While his sister Lucia strove to be a loving Catholic, his parents were anything but.
Our father's agnosticism hurt us constantly. Our mother was never seen by us visiting the Blessed Sacrament or going to benediction. They never went to communion or were seen kneeling to say a prayer.
Needless to say, his parents' marriage crumbled, and his father had asked for a legal separation shortly before Pier Giorgio's death. Even in the midst of this, Pier humbly honored and respected his parents while faithfully following Christ with his whole life. For example, although his parents first protested at his desire to more frequent reception of the Blessed Eucharist, he eventually won them over and was attending Mass and receiving communion almost daily.
He gave his whole self, both in prayer and in action, in service to Christ.
Upon reaching the age to attend university, he enrolled in Turin's Royal Polytechnic, planning a degree which would lead to a career in mining engineering. His reason for this? He felt miners to be among the most unhappy of workers, and planned a Christian apostolate among them. When asked once by a friend if he was happy in this world, he responded,
"You ask me if I am happy, and how can I not be happy? As long as faith gives me strength, I am happy. To live without faith, without a steady struggle for truth, that is not living, but existing."
He had everything that the modern world seems to value: good looks, a great personality, education, athletic abilities, and social status. While he loved Christ and all of mankind, Pier was never seen as being overly pious with a bland personality. Quite the opposite, in fact. While happiness and enthusiasm seemed to exude from his very being, he was actually known as quite the prankster. Furthermore, Pier loved sports and anything having to do with physical activity. Mountain climbing excursions and skiing trips specifically were his passion. It was on top of the mountains where he felt close to God.
If my studies permitted, I would spend entire days on the mountains, admiring in that pure atmosphere the splendor of God.
Outside of class and church, Pier spent much of his time with the Society of St. Vincent de Paul, and later became a third-order Dominican. This brought him face to face with all manner of human suffering: broken homes, illegitimate children, the destitute, the sick, the bereaved, the unemployed.
Jesus comes to me every morning in Holy Communion, and I reciprocate in the only way I can, by visiting the poor.
He knew how to walk amid the mud of this world without getting dirty.
As we grow close to the poor bit by bit, we gain their confidence and can advise them in the most terrible moments of this earthly pilgrimage. We can give them the comforting words of faith.
Many friends could not understand how he could go back day after day to love these people. The nauseating stench was enough to drive away any oncomers.
Do not ever forget that even though the house is filthy, you are approaching Christ. Around the sick, the poor, the unfortunate, I see a particular light, a light that we do not have.
Because of his deep love for the poor who suffered, Pier ignored his own health in his attendance at the side of many sick poor people. one of which he apparently contracted polio in the summer of 1925. Through his humility and self-denial, and though his sickness was fast and declining with sheer physical torment, no one seemed to barely notice. He spent his last days in a high fever, vomiting and with almost full paralysis, offering himself up to God as a victim soul and praying for the poor. After a week in indescribable agony, he quietly slipped from this earth. He died at the age of 24. Upon learning of his death, a flood of the city's poor and downtrodden came to his house to pay their respect to a young man who had brought so much love and compassion in the name of Christ.